recognized guest, Rahman sir, the specialist in measurement team global operation, Facebook. So let's get to it from sir himself.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys, for having me. And assalamu alaikum to everybody who's watching this live session. It's a great honor and a pleasure to be here with you. And it's something that I'm really looking forward to in any capacity if I can help you folks with the corporate grooming or just to let you guys know how it's in the tech sector. So really looking forward to this session.
Thanks a lot, sir. It means a lot that you are giving your valuable time with our students, and our faculty members have already joined the live session. Audience are increasing. So one more time, I would like to say that share this live session with your friends. This is going to be big, very big. So yeah, I think we should start. Madhav, you can proceed with the first question from the students.
Okay, the first question that we get from our student is how COVID is shaping the global workplace pattern.
Right. So it's a very interesting question. And before I proceed on to it, I think I'll give a brief introduction about myself because it's kind of linked with this question as well. So I started, I was also a business graduate, did my management science, which is a combination of data analytics and business strategy. And right after that, I jumped into the tech sector. I worked in OLX, which is an online marketplace, as a business intelligence analyst. And later was also built the department for performance marketing, which is essentially part of digital marketing. So the COVID didn't impact me there, but then later on I moved to Telenor, which is a telecom company, and I was working there. And almost a little bit more than a year from now, COVID hit us while I was still working in Telenor. And I still remember when it first came to Pakistan, we were, I personally was a little hesitant to the fact whether it's going to spread like anything or not. And we started having conversations like work from home since the very beginning. And suddenly we were given a temporary work from home, which would last for 5 days. But no one knew that it's not going to last for 5 days. It's going to go for a couple of months. And we were still on work from home when I was in Telenor, and I left them in November. October, November, that's when I left them, and we were still on work from home. I joined Facebook after that, and I joined Facebook while working from home as well. And it's not a very easy experience, I must say, especially when you join a new company and you're onboarding into a new company. It's not a very easy experience. So there are a lot of pros and cons of work from home, but I'm glad that world has adapted and technology has played a really pivotal role where we see all kind of video conferencing companies who've really come in and helped us. And I was just mentioning the pros and cons. So one of the pros is, of course, that you can be more flexible with how you work, and companies have given that flexibility to employees as well, especially in the tech sector, and especially Facebook, where you can manage the work-life balance a little better. But then again, since you're in a lockdown condition, it becomes really stressful for you for the mental health. So I think it's super important for all those watching to take care of the mental health. And mental health is super important. So engaging yourself with some kind of physical activity during this lockdown is super important, because those social interactions and human interactions have greatly reduced, because we're not in the offices anymore. We can't have lunch. We can't have meetings with a group of people. So yeah, that has changed negatively. Right. So I'll give you guys a little background, because I think the students who are watching this live session are yet to graduate. And I'd like to give some of the brief things that you guys should be polishing yourself or grooming yourself into before you step into the corporate world or step into the job world. So whether it is any sector, it could be development sector, could be the corporate sector, could be a startup. But I feel some of the skill sets, and if you have some of these things, you can really set yourself for success. I feel while you guys are in the university, this is a really good opportunity to get a lot of exposure. Get involved with different societies, and it's great to see you guys having a special society for digital marketing. I think it can help students groom their skills. You guys should have training sessions. We had a society which was called the LUMS Consultancy Group, and we used to have upskilling sessions for students where we used to teach them skills that are essential for the corporate world, such as communication skills, critical thinking skills, problem solving skills, analytical skills. And I feel these 4 skills, communication skills, analytical skills, critical thinking skills, these 3 skills are going to be the most vital skills, which are very generic, but you'll see these come across a lot of companies' positions as an eligibility criteria. So I feel polishing yourself on these skills is super important. when it comes to communication, you should have a very structured communication, a very condensed communication where you can actually communicate what you're thinking. And I'd like to propose a book over here. So there's a book which is called Pyramid Principle. It's called Pyramid Principle, and I can send that to you guys later so you can put it in the comment or where people can look at it. But I think it's really good to just have a training about structural thoughts and structural communication. So it's going to be very useful. And moving forward, the way the industry is moving, it's moving a lot towards the analytical and data centric side. So a lot of decisions are data driven, even in the development sector, even in the tech sector. So a lot of other sectors which you never thought about being dependent upon data are now gradually adopting data. So I feel that starts with simple tools like Excel, and being really good with Excel is now kind of an eligibility criteria. And then you can kind of vertically integrate yourself into softwares like R, Python, and it goes on and on. So training yourself on these skill sets is super important. And of course, if you're passionate about it, that is, and if you want to have a career in this industry, especially in the tech sector, I feel these skills are super important and will really help you with the day-to-day job. So I feel it's going to start for you guys from the CV, and that's going to be your ticket to the interview room. And there can be an entire session on the CV, but like a very concise advice that I'd like to give about the CV is that since it's the token for you guys to enter the interview room, you have to ensure that you form a really good CV. Now, by saying that forming a good CV, first of all, I think as graduates having no experience other than internships, you should keep it a one-pager. So having a one-pager CV with very concise points, what you've done in your internships or your school or your university projects, and how you've made an impact from them. So if you can kind of quantify them. So let's say you did an internship and you optimized some of the process in one of the projects, which led to a 20% increase in any of the metrics, maybe you can mention this in the CV. So you can kind of mention the impact. Now, what's important is in the CV, you have to keep things really concise because the recruiter does not have a lot of time to sift through the CV. And the average time a recruiter takes on one CV is 3 to 4 seconds. So you have to make your mark within 3 or 4 seconds. And that's where you get shortlisted. That's where the major shortlisting happens. So if you're lucky enough to have your CV cleared, which I'm sure all of you are gonna, then it's the next stage is the interview stage. I feel in the interview stage, the etiquettes or maybe the dress code, it is quite dependent upon the company, and it is quite dependent upon the industry that you're going for. So maybe there's still some companies which require a very formal dress code, and it's good to ask them if you feel so. But there are a lot of companies who are now adopting a very casual take onto what the etiquette should be in the interviews. For example, I remember when I was in my university, I was probably given a lot of interviews in a formal dress code. But later on, when I used to give interviews in the tech sector, that was probably just a t-shirt and a very casual, like a formal, it wasn't a formal dress code. It was pretty informal. So I think that is very dependent from company to company. And you guys can tailor yourself according to that, just like you tailor what you talk about in the interview. So I think dress code is one thing, but what's more important is the content that's going to go in the interview. So you guys should be prepared for the interview. Research should be done about the company that you're interviewing in, what their values are, what their mission is. And you should try to tie your experience around these values and around the mission of the company. So I think these things are probably more important than what your dress code should be. So being prepared for the interview, being prepared for the questions which can be looked on Google, like what are the common questions that are asked in the companies, and what has really helped me has been doing mock interviews before going into an actual interview. So have your friend or have any of your confidant take a mock interview from you, which will really set you up for the interview that is to come. So I feel these skills are important. Your communication skills are important because you don't have a lot of time where you have to answer those questions. And you want to really tell them about why that company needs you and how you have that skill set which they really need, and how you fit into that company, how you're a cultural fit for them, how you have those skills which are required for the job. So it's a good practice to go over the job description and make marks against it, that how you fulfill each and every point in the job description. And while you're giving that work experience of yours, just try to satisfy that requirement from those companies. So if there's any cross question, please go ahead. If I haven't made myself clear on anything, you can ask me about that specifically as well. Sounds great. So I think one thing that I'd like to tell you guys is that success doesn't really come overnight. So it's not like you see people in the tech sector that they end up overnight, or like getting their dream job overnight. It's like a process. And the attribution of success should be done on different variables. So it's not only the university that you're in, it's not only the work experience that you have, it's not only the internships that you do or the degree that you have. It's a combination of a lot of variables which sets you up for success. So for example, let's say you probably were in your school or in your college where you learned a specific skill like communication skills because you were part of debating, let's say, and that becomes handy in your interview somewhere after your graduation. Maybe your parents taught you some skill which becomes handy 10 years later. So it's a combination of all these skills. And I feel while you guys are in university, this is a great platform where you can get involved with extracurriculars, and that's what I did. So I'll tell you guys about my experience a bit. While I was in my university, which was a business school, there were a lot of opportunities to get involved with different societies: adventure society, sports society, entrepreneurial society, MUN society. And I feel it's a great opportunity for students to really get into societies and get some experience from there, learn some project management, learn critical thinking skills, because these are super handy. So I was part of like 4 or 5 different school clubs, which was sports, which was the entrepreneurial society, the MUN society, and the consultancy group as well. And consultancy group was primarily to learn about the skill set that is required in today's world. So I think other than these extracurriculars opportunities that you get in the society, one of the best things about a university is that you can always do an internship, especially in your summer break. And that's a very good opportunity to take a taste of every industry or a company. So if you're not even sure where you have to go, whether it's the tech sector, whether it's the development sector, you can always do an internship in any of these sectors to get to know that sector and see for yourself whether it suits you or not. Because maybe the tech sector suits one person, but another person is not made for the tech sector. Another person is not passionate about it. So I personally did 5 internships while I was in my university. I always capitalized my summer break to do these internships and see which sector really suited me. Eventually, after I graduated, I went into a tech company which was called OLX. It was a startup at that time. And I had an offer from a very big company as well. It was a FMCG, a very popular company and a very popular job. And I was about to take that job, but eventually I did not go for that job eventually. And I went for this small startup, which was a company of just 10 people. And I when I look at it in retrospect, I feel I'm lucky that I went for that company. And it was a good decision because over there in the startup, I was able to find really good mentors. And I was able to directly work with head of departments and the CEO himself. And they really taught me a lot, which has been super handy currently in my job and even getting to where I am right now. So I feel those things really matter a lot. Having good mentors in your first job, and first job should not be about your salary, should not be about how big the company is, because you should always remember that it's a step-by-step cycle of getting to your dream. So it's not like it happens overnight. So you gradually build small steps towards it. And one is mentorship that you should get early in the career, and the second is learning. Your focus should be learning rather than salary or any of those things. I know it should be one of the focuses, but your priority should be learning and mentorship. I really got really good learning and mentorship from the first company that I was working in, got autonomy to projects, got the opportunity to learn new skills. While I was in university, for example, I never knew how to use SQL. I never knew how to use data analytics tools, but that's something I learned in my first job, on job. So having such an environment where learning is encouraged, I feel that's a big thing. So you guys should be focusing upon learning a lot. And if you're really into the tech sector or like inclined towards the side, probably you can start from learning from these courses which are on Udemy or Coursera, like really basic courses like Excel or Google Sheets and stuff like that. You can start from there. If it interests you and you want to go deeper into analytics, then you can go a step ahead and you can start learning R you could start learning SQL, you could start learning Python. And these having these skill set is super important in these days, especially if you want to go to the analytical side. They'll become really handy, and they're going to also polish your problem solving skills. So one is this, which is specific to the skill set in the data side or in the tech sector. But the other one is also communication. So building communication is essential for interviews. Building communication is also essential for giving your ideas when you're working on projects in your work life. That's also very essential. So building those skills is super important. I mentioned a book, Pyramid Principles, so maybe that's also a nice book to look at. Other than that, there's some personality traits which are important that I'd like to talk about. And one is, of course, hard work. You cannot really get anything without working really hard or being determined towards it. So I always wanted to work in Facebook or Google, and I wanted to learn those skills. I wanted to really set myself up for these companies. And I told you it doesn't come overnight. So it comes over months and years. So you work hard, you really work hard on the projects, you really work hard in the current company that you're working in. And gradually you start building your career from there. You start learning those skills. You start learning soft skills as well in these companies, which then enable you to probably be successful to land a dream job, I guess. Other than that, other than hardworking, I feel having a very humble and a learning attitude is essential. So if you have that learning attitude, you'd always be learning new skills. You'd be learning soft skills. You'd be learning hard skills. You'd be learning the skills that are required to get to that dream job of yours. So that's very important. Learning should never stop, and learning can never stop either. So I can never say that I know everything, or now I think I know most of the things, because that's not the case. I personally hardly know anything, even at this stage. I think the learning process can never stop and should never stop either. That is very important. And I feel taking feedback from your mentors is also important. So for example, if you guys do an internship or you guys are working in a project within the university, it's good to take feedback from your instructors, where you went wrong, where you went right. So you can double down on the things which are correct, but you can also kind of try to avoid those mistakes, which will become roadblocks when you're working. So it's good to eradicate those mistakes of yours at this stage, rather than learning about those mistakes after 5 or 10 years, because it's gonna do a lot of damage by then. So yeah, that's a smart way to go about getting good constructive feedback and applying that on yourself. Fair enough. I feel no, and I can't talk about everybody, but I can tell you for a fact that a lot of people that I know, and even a lot of instructors in my university, there was an instructor who was teaching me brand management. And I asked him once that do you think you're there? What you wanted to do? Are you sure you wanted to do brand management? You've done a PhD in it. So he was a doctor. And that's what he told me, that, he's still not sure whether he should have come into brand management or not. So the reason for me telling you guys is that it's not how it looks. Everybody does not have this idea that, this is what I want to become. I want this position. I want to go into academia. I want to go into this specific company. Maybe it is for some people, but personally, I can talk about myself, and that wasn't the case for me, because I was initially an engineering student, and after in my 9th, 10th in my college, I was an engineering student. And then I thought that no, engineering is not my thing. I went into a business school, and even within the business school, I went into the humanities and social sciences school. Even though the university was known for the business school, but I actually went in to do economics over there. After 1 year, I realized that maybe economics is really not my thing, and I switched my major to management science, which was within the business school. So that kind of resonated with me, and I continued with that. I wasn't really sure which company I want to work in. So during my internships, I did vastly different internships, which were really different areas. I've also done an internship in the hoteling industry. I've done one internship in the development sector. I've done one with the NGO. I've done one internship with the government sector as well. I was working in the parliament. It was a USAID project, so I was working in the Pakistan parliament for a while. And then eventually I also worked in the FMCG industry in Royal Streets in Campina. So I took that opportunity in my university where you really have the time to think over these things to see where I really fit. And eventually I went into a tech company after I graduated. And I really enjoyed my experience over there. I really enjoyed the kind of learning, the culture. And probably when I went into the first tech company, I never knew that I'd be aiming for Facebook or Google, to be honest. But since I went into the tech company, I was enjoying that tech setup. I was enjoying the work culture over there. I was really enjoying the work, which is essential, right? So it's very important for you guys to know that when you choose to go into a career, you should have, number one, passion for it. Number two, you should have the relevant skill set for it. And of course, then you should also have opportunities for it. So if you're passionate about something, you'll really invest yourself into it. You'd love to learn about it every day. And it won't really feel like a burden on your shoulders, right? So being passionate is super important. And I think navigating yourself every day really works to get to know where you really want to be after 5 years or 10 years. So just don't get the pressure that you have to really decide right now where you want to be, because that's something which keeps on changing. So when I joined my first job, I got promoted after a year, but I remember when I switched my job, it was kind of a demotion for me. I switched my job into another company, which is a huge setup, but I had to switch it for my family. I had to shift back to my hometown because of my family. But you never know, right? So I ended up doing projects over there which were more senior than my title. So these things like your title doesn't really matter, because I was working in that company. My title may not have been equivalent to what the projects that I was leading over there, but eventually that's what really helped me learn about a lot of things and learn new skills, which helped me get to Facebook today, probably, right? So it keeps on changing. When I went into the tech sector, only then I had this dream of going into Facebook or Google. So it's not something that you're born with, right? You really don't have to know this in the beginning. So it can change, and you shouldn't pressurize yourself. But it's always good to be curious about it and have mentors help you navigate yourself where you want to be. Absolutely. I think I completely agree with it. So the way I understand it is that networking and having a social capital is super important. So by social capital, I mean that anyone you know and who comes in your network is basically your social capital. So for example, people have wealth and capital. We talk about the kind of money they have and all. Similarly, you also have social capital, which is your personal network, which could be your mentors, your friends, your family, people you know at work, people you know in the university, your instructors, your mentors. And I feel your network is super important. And I think for various reasons, because the kind of network and the kind of circle you're in is also what you're going to talk about. And what you're going to talk about is probably what you're going to learn. The kind of discussions you have in your friends group is kind of also defines you, right? So there's a very nice saying, I don't really remember who it's from, but it goes like, weak minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, and strong minds or smart minds discuss ideas, right? So if you're discussing ideas, and if you're curious to learn amongst your friends group, of course, you'd learn something from each other, because you'd be curious to learn. And those learnings could really help you get to your next job or get to your next goal, whatever your goal is in your life, not essentially just a job. It could be anything. It could be any of your projects in the relief work. It could be any of your projects in an NGO maybe, or in the development sector. So I feel social capital is very important for you to personally stimulate your mind and have those learnings. And also at times, eventually, you also end up working in those companies where your network is. Because I'll tell you my personal example, and this is a very funny one. Essentially how I actually ended up in Facebook. So in Facebook, you have a recruitment process. It's a very rigorous kind of a recruitment process, and it's difficult to get your CV shortlisted. I was referred to by a friend of mine. And if you're referred, basically you have good chances of being shortlisted, your CV being shortlisted, and then it's just on you, because then you have like 5-6 rounds of interviews, and then your referral doesn't really have anything to do with it, but then you're on your own. But just to getting to that interviews, it's kind of helpful. So I got to the screening round because of a referral, and that referral was from a friend of mine. And the next question is, which friend? So I still remember, while I was in my university, I wanted to buy a phone, and I wanted to buy a secondhand phone. And I went onto these buy and sell groups on Facebook, and I made a post over there that I want this phone. Anybody selling it? So there were a lot of comments, a lot of people selling that phone. And there was one person who said, yeah, I'm selling it, and the phone is in great condition. It's with warranty. It's with this and that. I was like, seems like a safe deal. And I went with that phone. So I met him the other night, and the next day I just gave him cash and came back, bought that phone off. Unfortunately, that phone got bricked. That phone wasn't working anymore suddenly. So I messaged him and I told him to take this phone back because it's not working. He told me that you can go into any of the shops to get it fixed. I was like, no, I think it's better that I give it back to you because I think there's something wrong with the phone. Then he told me that, okay, let's calm down. Let's meet and I'll fix the phone for you because I'm a certified Apple technician. So we met in a cafe, and fixing the phone was a long process. So it took 1 or 2 hours. So while it was getting fixed, we started chatting with each other, and we started to get to know each other. And I think there was a good bond that we started building over there. And he fixed my phone eventually, and I made a friend as well that day. Couple of months later, I learned that he's ended up in Facebook. And once I saw a relevant position, I asked him if he could refer me. So he referred me for that position, and I got an interview call. Eventually, in that interview round, I really didn't end up in Facebook because the position got disappeared because of restructuring that happened in the company. But Facebook later contacted me themselves to join one of the similar positions that came about. But what I mean is that, can you really believe it, that a person that I bought my phone from ended up someone being one of the important variables to where I am right now? So you never know. You really never know who could really benefit you or who can help you. And by help you, I mean it's a two-way process, right? So you have to help them. You have to help people as well, and people will help you. So it's a two-way street. So I feel social capital is super important. They can help you develop yourself in the professional world as well. And nowadays, I feel a lot of jobs come with networking. And I'm glad that you guys have a club which is very relevant to what the industry is out there. Digital marketing is one of the growing skill sets. It's something I've also done. So I was leading the performance marketing for OLX Pakistan. It's a fantastic skill to have. I feel there are a lot of prerequisites if you want to be successful in this skill set or in this domain. And a lot of things are tied to having good data or analytical skills. So you can optimize the campaigns really well on Facebook, Google, or other social media platforms. But it's fantastic. So you guys can groom students actually at this stage, so they're set up for better success, and they can also know whether they want to be in that job or not. So it's fantastic. Just keep learning. I hope everybody is curious about learning, and you guys are teaching them good skill sets. And it's nice to expose them to people from the industry. So I feel that's fantastic. So I wish you all the best. And it's good to see your club working towards a very relevant skill set in this time. So it was great to have you guys, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining with us.
Thanks a lot, all the students and the honorable faculty member, including our guest, Abdur sir, for giving us your valuable time with us. And before you go, we would like to say that we will be coming with some other more instructive sessions.